Hello and welcome, I'm Fekahmed Negash. The controversy over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam seems to have resurfaced again, and this time around it concerns the speed and volume of water storage. In other words, the filling of the dam. What is it really? My guest today, Fekahmed Negash, has lived the controversy for many years. Everyone will come to the program.
Thank you.
The negotiations among the riparian countries, the conversation, it seemed particularly between Ethiopia, Egypt, and also including the Sudan, seemed to have been going well up until when? Last week. We are into a very tricky juncture. Do you agree?
Yes, definitely. It seems as if it is going well, but always, the relationship between Ethiopia and Egypt is always full of ups and downs. So it is one of such episodes which is happening, but in a very intensified way. So it is happening anyway.
Let's be very specific. It all concerns the filling up of the dam, the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Egypt has come with some proposal which was not agreeable to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia has made it clear that it's not going to go along with that 40 billion cubic meters of water have to be annually released over to Egypt. That seems to be an outlandish proposal.
Yeah, first, actually, the way it came itself is very funny, because the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a dam that is a national project of Ethiopia being constructed by the Ethiopians, financed fully by Ethiopia within Ethiopian territory, and to be filled by Ethiopian water anyway. So it is very logical, or it is expected, that Ethiopia develops its own filling strategy and operational role. And then Ethiopia, a responsible nation, a country that always takes, the concerns of its neighbors into account, it's very logical that it is expected from Ethiopia to communicate the filling strategy and then the operational rule to the riparian countries for consultation. That is a logical order. And the right of the downstream countries is actually to comment on those strategies and the rules, and then to show their concerns, and even they can request for any form of improvement. But what happened now is that Egypt came with a proposal for filling and a long-term operation on Ethiopian dam. This is very ridiculous. How can a country really, proposes a filling strategy and operational rule for other countries' dam? This is totally not a normal way of actually relation happening between the countries. So it is not expected, it is not a logical order that Egypt does that. This is the first mistake. The second mistake, when we look at the overall proposal, the proposal 100% focuses on Egyptian interest. You don't find, it is, by the way, it is an agreement. It is an agreement on the technical aspect of the filling and operation of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. That is how it is termed. And you don't find any clause in that document which is in the interest of Ethiopia. It is 100% in the interest of Egypt. That means if it is Egyptian dam within Egyptian territory to be filled by the Egyptian water, okay, they can develop such type of an agreement or a proposal. But there is nothing in this document that talks about generation of energy. I mean, the main objective of the dam is it is a hydropower dam meant to generate energy for Ethiopia's demand, as well as satisfying the demand of neighboring countries, including even that of Egypt. But there is no mention of generating energy in that proposal. That shows that they considered actually the dam as a sort of extension of the Aswan High Dam that is meant to just fill up or maintain.
That's what they said, right? It has to be done in relation to what's going to happen to the Aswan Dam.
Yes. So in one of those demands, actually the Egyptian proposal, proposed some form of minimum guaranteed release from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam of 40 billion cubic meter. But before that, actually, just to go back into some earlier engagements, like in December 2018, Ethiopia proposed, when there are two studies being conducted by consultant as a result of the recommendation of the International Panel of Experts. Those studies are going on. I've got some problems, but they are still going on by international consultants. So when those studies are not coming up with a finding on time, Ethiopia proposed that they establish an independent team of researchers who can jointly develop filling strategy as well as long-term operational role based upon country studies. So this was actually proposed by Ethiopia in December 2018. Like in May 2019 or in May 2018, the countries they met here in Addis, the three ministers of water, three ministers of foreign affairs, and the three heads of the security, they met in Addis. They established this national independent scientific research group, 5 from each country. So the team, they developed actually their filling strategy. They met for 4 months. Quickly they developed the filling strategy, and also they discussed and agreed on the long-term operation.
But they were not specific, were they?
They were very specific. When they developed, by the way, those are independent people. They are researchers. They are not representing their countries. It is a matter of giving, researchers a space to assist the countries to make informed decision-making. So they came up, for example, with a minimum guaranteed flow of 35 billion cubic meter. Yes, a minimum flow of 35 billion cubic meter is high from the Ethiopian side because Ethiopia can agree 30 billion because that is slightly higher than the recorded minimum annual flow of the Blue Nile. Ethiopia can agree on 30. The research team came with 35. I'm sure Ethiopia can live with that. Even if it is higher, Ethiopia can live with that.
So, okay, yeah.
But Egypt came with 40 billion.
Because they knew that where the discussion was headed, so they have to come up with a counter-proposal. That's what they did.
By the way, this is not Ethiopian proposal.
Well, I know, but it was going to be adopted one way or the other.
The 35 billion, in one way or another, in the interest of actually the downstream countries, I'm sure Ethiopia can agree to 35 billion. But when they come with 40 billion, for one thing, they considered the proposal done or the filling strategy done by the research team of the 3 countries, they considered it Ethiopian proposal. This is actually a wrong information they are giving to the international community. It was done jointly. How can you call a finding that is done jointly by researchers of the 3 countries, they called it Ethiopian proposal? The main reason they said it is Ethiopian proposal is really to attract the international community or to bring the international community into the discussion and to put some pressure on Ethiopia so that Ethiopia can agree somewhere in between 35 and 40. But this is a joint agreement. Then they came with the 40. Then what is the problem with the 40? The Blue Nile, the average long-term discharge is about 49 billion. But the variability is very high. The variability is something from 29 billion up to 70 billion. So when they say 40 billion, and if Ethiopia agrees to release 40 billion, then when we compare it with average, that means Ethiopia is going to retain about 9 billion. If it happens that we have the average for, let's say, some consecutive years, you may need 10 years or 9 years to fill the dam. That will have a very big consequence on the economic return of the dam to Ethiopia.
Because it has to start generating power.
Yes.
And Ethiopia was suggesting, 3 years?
Look, technically you can fill the dam in 2 years, no problem. But
that would have an impact on...
It will have impact on downstream countries. Ethiopia's proposal is between 4 to 6 years. depending upon the season. Like if there are consecutive wet seasons where you have more than average,
Would be releasing more.
yes, you can release more, then you can fill it within 4 years. If it is average years, you can do it in 5. If it is less than average, you can do it in 5 years, in 6 years, without really significant impact on the water requirement of downstream countries. That is Ethiopian proposal. But still, if there are consecutive drought years, it is possible to extend that to 7 years. Above that, it will have really grave economic consequence on Ethiopia. The return on investment will be lower. So, like Egypt came up with a 40 billion minimum guaranteed flow. Let's say what happened in the 1980s repeat now. The dam will not fill up. It will not fill up. So those are actually the type of proposals they came up, which is actually rejected by Ethiopia.
And the conversation has started among the three countries, partly to sort this thing out too, right? How is it going?
Actually, I don't have the information is still will not be released until they come out of the negotiation. But I know the agenda. The agenda is that they will discuss on the finding of this independent research scientific group, the National Independent Scientific Group. They will discuss on that finding. By the way, just to come back, on September 25 last year, the countries, the three ministers of water affairs met here in Addis to discuss on the finding of this independent research group. And they agreed on most of the findings. Almost they reached agreement on most of the findings. And they were drafting a minute. They drafted a minute. And just before signing the minute, the Egyptian minister, wanted to consult with his, back at home in Cairo. He went back and he never actually, he rejected actually the step.
I remember that.
Now they are going to discuss on that. They will discuss also on Egyptian proposal, Ethiopian proposal, and the Sudanese proposal. So if they can salvage something out of those 4 types of proposals, they are going to submit that, I think, on the 4th of September to the Ministers of Water Affairs.
Which is this week.
Yes.
You think there's going to be a win-win solution for this?
Yes, that is a win-win solution.
What would that be?
The win-win solution is really for the 3 countries to look at interests of each other, concerns of each other, fears of each other, sit down around the table, use science as a basis, forget about the politics, remove politics from, the discussion.
But no matter how hard you try to, it's going to step in from time to time. Because we live in a very, very complex geopolitical landscape.
Yeah. You see, you can keep as much as possible politics to the minimum. This is science. This is mathematics. This is a model. You develop a model. And the model can, to some extent, imitate the reality. It is very clear that the Blue Nile, it has got some variability, but still there are some opportunities which we can build upon if there is a confidence and a trust among the countries. The Aswan High Dam is an over-year storage. In the Aswan High Dam, Egypt always keeps more than 2 years of water they need for their irrigation and whatever demand they have. So that can be considered as an opportunity. People consider storage in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. People consider this as a loss or as a reduction from downstream, from water available downstream. But that is not the case. It is a temporary retention of water in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which will be used to replenish later on. So, since there is some excess water, reserve water in the Aswan High Dam, the downstream countries can use those waters in the dam, as well as waters coming from other systems in the Nile, which are outside the Blue Nile. By the way, large amount of water is coming from the White Nile. Large amount of water is going from the Baro Akobo Sobat. Large amount of water is going also from the Takaze Atabara. So they can use those opportunities. What it can create is that it may force the Aswan High Dam to operate at a lower level with some minor implication on energy generation capacity at the Aswan High Dam. That is all, the feeling of the dam will bring. Once the dam is full, then the water will start, being released, and then the Aswan High Dam will recover back and then go back to its normal operation. Also, we have to look at the long-term advantages, because once the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is full, then you don't have you don't have to store huge amount of water as a reserve in the Aswan High Dam and expose it to evaporation, because this is a reserve that will be used eventually by downstream countries. So many studies by international community shows that the Aswan High Dam is better off with the dam when compared to with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, when compared with the without situation in case of prolonged droughts, because there is water up there which can be released at any time. So it is a matter of actually building trust and confidence.
But trust doesn't seem to be coming in easily, checking in easily, because even President Al-Sisi raised this issue in his address at the General Assembly of the United Nations. When was it? Last month?
Yes, in the General Assembly, President Abdel Fattah Al-Sisi.
That's when we knew, at least officially, that there's something wrong with the whole negotiation process between Ethiopia, particularly Ethiopia and Egypt.
Yeah, for me, that is also one problem, because this is a very minor issue. It was presented at the General Assembly of the UN, where you have to present issues of regional importance, issues of strategic importance to the continent.
The Egyptians consider it a very strategic commodity.
Yeah, they attach it to an issue of national security. It is in their best interest to do that, but I don't consider it, a very important issue, because something which is not totally under your control, if you make it, issue of your national security, that means your national security is not under your control. So it was presented there, and the way it was, for one thing, it shouldn't have been presented there, because the solution to the filling and the operation of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, as well as a solution regarding the utilization of the waters of the Nile Basin, lies within the basin and among the countries. The UN, can assist actually in the countries to come together and discuss. That is all they do.
But why did he mention this whole issue in his speech?
It could be like...
To apply pressure, for example, in Ethiopia?
Yes, it is a matter of attracting or bringing in third party into the discussion, so that the Egyptians are always making themselves a victim of what other countries are doing. But it doesn't yield anything. It doesn't yield anything. Anybody, an international body, you come and look at the situation, can definitely clearly understand that actually Ethiopia is going beyond the limits to accommodate the interest of those countries. It is very clear. But the most important reason why this thing is brought to the UN has also internal implication, because at that time, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is addressing the international community as well as his constituency, that is Egypt. You see, like if you go back and look at what happened on 14th of September, there was the inauguration of the Youth Forum in Cairo, an event which was brought forth actually by 3 or 4 months. This event was planned in December, but it was brought to September.
He made a very important point there, at least to galvanize support from his constituency, right?
Yes. Why is that? Why did he brought it forth? And on that event, he made a speech whereby he said to the youth, the Egyptian revolution had some advantage, but he said he brought us a very big danger. That's the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. He went on to say that had it not been for the Egyptian revolution of 2011, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam should have never been constructed.
What do you make of that statement?
Because now he said finally to the youth, don't try to start any revolution because it is a danger to Egypt. Why did he do that? Because he have information that the youth are planning to start a demonstration. Okay? He did that on 10th of September, and on 14th of September, there was demonstration all over Egypt. And then now it is going on. So he is using actually the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as, a sort of a shield for his power against revolution. In doing that, he made actually two mistakes. One is information. There is no relation between the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the Egyptian revolution. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance...
Well, the Egyptians were at their weakest. There is some correlation there.
What I mean is, look, when we look at the chronological order, the Egyptian revolution started in February 2011. By that time, the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is almost 2 months in the making. The contract for the construction of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam was signed in December 2010, 2 months before the Egyptian revolution. Negotiations started 6 months before the Egyptian revolution, and the preparation started about 9 months before the Egyptian revolution. So you can say there is no relation between the Egyptian revolution and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance. When the construction started, actually, Hosni Mubarak was in his office without any revolution, no disturbance. So this is a misinformation actually released by His Excellency the President. The other information is actually a matter of sovereignty. I mean, Ethiopia has full sovereign right over its water resources.
But it has to talk to the riparians to be able to, particularly the downstream countries. It can't do that single-handedly.
Look, it is this way. You have sovereign right over the development of your own resources. This is internationally accepted, nationally accepted, naturally accepted, logical approach. But in terms of transboundary water, there are some limitations. I mean, your sovereignty is limited to the extent that you don't cause significant impact on the utilization of downstream countries. So it is an obligation upon Ethiopia to make sure that they don't cause significant impact on downstream countries. When we come to the procedures have to be established by a treaty that could be signed among the countries. But there is no agreement as far as the Nile is concerned. There is no agreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia on the procedure how you can consult and discuss with downstream countries. So in such situation, Ethiopia should do due diligence to make sure that the impact is not significant on downstream countries. So that's already been done by Ethiopia. Then, without even considering the historical relation between the countries, I mean, one should look at...
So do you think the Egyptians have to depend just on Ethiopia's goodwill?
As long as there is no agreement, that is the situation. But what happened is that Ethiopia actually invited Egypt and Sudan to come, and even including international consultants, to come and review and assess the studies done on the dam. They are allowed to go to the dam site several times, I can say several times, to do studies, to do investigation. And then they came up with a recommendation as part of the international panel of experts. Ethiopia implemented all the recommendations actually given to it by international panel of experts. This is a very big gesture on part of Ethiopia. And one should look back what happened in 2060s when Egypt started the construction of the Aswanite Dam. Ethiopia asked for information and they denied any information. So Ethiopia actually positively responded to their concerns.
So what is the way out of here, you think? Because this is one of the things that's cropped up along the way. There are plenty, as you know. You've also touched upon a few of those that would come up as thorny issues as this country braces up to start power generation from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. When is it? In the next year? The 2 turbines will be operational, as that's what the Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy said. Water, electricity.
you can divide this into two. There is the issue of the Nile. That is the biggest issue. Regarding the issue of the Nile, the only way out is for the countries to have an agreed upon legal agreement and an institutional mechanism that will actually regulate the utilization of the waters of the Nile Basin. This is the only way out. The countries negotiated for 13 years, agreed in almost all articles and sub-articles except one sub-article, and that sub-article is removed from the text to be negotiated in the future. So there is no logical reason for any country in the Nile Basin to say no to this treaty. 6 countries already signed the agreement. 3 or 4, I said 3 or 4 because Uganda almost is completing the ratification. So is already ratified. Is waiting for 2 countries to join. Burundi, Kenya, and South Sudan are actually in the process. So it is a really very high time for other countries. 3 countries didn't accept so far, like DRC, Democratic Republic Congo, Sudan, and Egypt, to join the PAC, so that there will be a treaty that will govern the sustainable utilization of the river in the future. This is one aspect. Regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, really still again the best approach is to listen to the finding or to look at the finding of the research team critically, debate on that, negotiate on that, and agree on a certain level. This is very technical. It is very clear. So if they agree on that, then the feeling will be in accordance with the terms of the agreement. In the absence of that, what I expect is that Ethiopia will start feeling when the time reaches, when it is ripe, when the project is ready, when the turbines are in place, storage no problem, so Ethiopia can start impoundment.
Well, Fekahmed Negash, thank you very much for your insight on the subject. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.